This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. Now, giving advice on YouTube is very difficult because I need a lot of info from you to actually help. So if you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and this is the Flow NX2 TM. Next to it is the Flow NX2 Carbon, the Clew, the Burton Step-On Genesis, and the Nidecker Supermatic. I rode this with a few different boards and did some samplers against all these bindings you see here and a few more. I always start out with my Union Atlas because that's my baseliner and the binding I ride every day. And I rode these with my Burton Kendos. But when I was on Step-On, I rode them with the Photon Step-On Wide that's been redone for 2022 and is the same for 2023. And to give you a short summary, the Flow NX2 TM is not quite as fast in and out as the Nidecker Supermatic or the Clew or the Burton Step-On. Personally, I like the hybrid strap system versus their fusion strap system, but it's hard to go against the feel underfoot and the shock absorption you get with these versus the Supermatic or the Clew. And it still is a little better than the Step-On because the Step-On doesn't have the dampness. So if you're into that more mellow, relaxed feel that allows a lot of freedom of movement, especially with the fusion, then this could work for you. I personally would prefer the hybrid strap system because I get a little more ankle support, but it's all personal preference. Now, when it comes to weight, these are 2.2 pounds, not heavy, not light, kind of in the middle, maybe a touch on the heavy side. If you compare them to all the step-in bindings with discs and inserts in, they're 1.8 pounds. My Union Atlas are 2.2 pounds, so they're the same as these, and I didn't mind that. The Clews are 2.4. The Supermatics are super heavy at 2.8. And funny enough, the Flow NX2 Carbon was 2.4 pounds when I weighed it. Really weird that the Carbon was heavier, but for some reason it is. And I like just doing this right now in almost the same place, grabbing them like this does feel heavier, so what do you know? Now, when it comes to the Highback Flex, it's very interesting. You have this whole thing here, this lever, and they have to add a lot to the high back. So I think it really affects the overall flex and smooth feel of it, but there is some give on the sides and a little give going back. But if you compare it to the Nidecker Supermatic, which doesn't have that lever there, you can see there's lots of give and lots of twist. So even the Clew, they have that same kind of thing where it's deadening the overall high back feel with this lever here, but at least they have a lot more twist and give in the area around the top where you feel it the most. But in comparison to the Genesis Reflex, you're just far, far away from good twist and easy give because you're connected right here to the high back. So I think the Highback Flex is an acquired taste. I got used to it a little more over time, but I didn't really like it as much as other Highbacks, but that's just a compromise you have to make with the quick release. Now, when it comes to flex underfoot, I really like what they're doing here by putting this rubber pad throughout the bottom of the binding. It dampens the ride, but it also allows the board to flex a little more naturally underfoot. And then you can see too, they also tried to minimize the contact as much as they could. So it's mainly just the disc that has full contact with the board. And I like that. Same here with the NX2 carbon. And in comparison to the Supermatic, you get a faster in and out, but you get a lot more contact with the board. This stiffens up the ride, but it doesn't quite dampen it like the Flow does. So, and in comparison to Clew, I mean, they don't really have anything going on here. It's just all plastic and contact. Still, this does have some advantages, and we'll talk about that later. And when it comes to Flex Underfoot with the reflex technology of the step-in bindings, I think they're doing this really well. You still have just a nice bend down through the middle. So this all bends, including the disc, and it just flexes so naturally underfoot in comparison to all these. But the Flow bindings are closer than the other two, the Supermatic and the Clew. Now, when it comes to turn initiation and response, I feel this has a nice, smooth, really mellow response, but it can still turn a board. But what I don't like personally is the Fusion strap. I'm so used to a higher ankle strap on my ankle that I don't like it sitting as low. And I really wish I got the NX2 TM hybrid that has this type of ankle strap setup, because it just sits higher. Let's do this, you can kind of see. It just sits higher on your ankle than this does. This sits lower, and some people really like that, especially if you skate and you surf and you want to duplicate that feeling on snow. You might like this better. I surf, I don't really skate, and I like that ankle support, especially in all conditions in uneven snow. And I feel this just adds to the response. So I'm more into the hybrid just because it's more symmetrical in terms of response. This feels like there's a little more response on the heel side than there is on the toe, and that took a while to get used to. Again, all personal preference. Now, if you want the ultimate in response, it's all about the step-on, but in my opinion, it's almost too much response. I like that they're dialing it back with the boots lately, and the Burton Genesis step-on is much less responsive than the other bindings, and I really like that. It has a little bit more of a smooth feel, but these still just feel a little bit less than hard booting. Clew has nice symmetrical response too, and so do the Supermatics. Now, when it comes to shock absorption and dampness, Flow is doing great things here. You've got this really nice EVA foam heel pad along with some rubber here that's hard to see, but you can see there is some rubber along with the foam on the pad here. There's that same bit of shock absorption in the toe, but they put some plastic underneath over the gas pedal so you don't get pressure points like you do with Now and Jones. And then you also have this rubber dampness on the bottom. So you have this really nice balance between being damp and shock absorbent. So at high speeds, it reduces that chatter. When you land flat, we all don't want to, but we all do it sometimes. You have some EVA foam here to absorb that shock. And this is getting very close to some of the best in the business when it comes to dampness and shock absorption, and that's Now and Jones. Those are the best when it comes to doing both. The NX2 carbon is a little stiffer. It has carbon fiber along the footbed here. It still has that same dampness on the bottom and that same padding in the heel, and I like that. In comparison to Clew, there's almost no shock absorption, and that's kind of a bummer. And in comparison to the Supermatic, there is some, but it is a far cry from this. So when it comes to support, I touched on this a bit when it comes to turn initiation and response, but I'll elaborate here. This is a Nidecker binding, but Nidecker owns Flow now, and so you can see they're using this hybrid strap from the Flow line, and this is the Fusion strap, and the Fusion strap's a little easier in and out, but the hybrid strap has a little more support because it sits higher up on the ankle. And I personally like that a little bit better than this Fusion strap. Again, it's all personal preference, but if you want support, you want to go with the hybrid system. It sits a little higher. It feels a little bit more like a traditional strap binding. The one thing I found is if I wanted to increase the support, it slowed down my in and out time, because what I would do is I would step in, not tighten that down. This has a lock. So I would step in, and then as I'm going, give it 1 or 2 clicks to get this snug. I feel that compromises things, where I didn't have to really do that with the Nidecker Supermatic and the hybrid strap. The Nidecker Supermatic is a little easier in and out versus Flow. But if you compare the two, I just felt like this was much easier to step in and down into than this. And then I didn't have to reach back and pull this. And that can feel a little weird, where that you just step down and go, just like you do with the Clew and the Burton step-ons. So for me, it's all about the hybrid strap, but for you, if you like a little more mellow, a little quicker in and out, you might like this. So when it comes to adjustability, you do have some forward lean here, which is better than the Burton step-on bindings. They just have a very minor forward lean adjustment. These screws you pull up and down here, which I really don't like. But in comparison to Clew and to the Nidecker Supermatic, they're all very similar. You can adjust your forward lean. None of these have really good high back rotation. I couldn't figure out a way to get the high back to rotate here. I don't think it does because of this quick release system. I just couldn't figure out how to make that happen. And when it comes to dialing out your boot to fit this binding properly, you don't have much going on here. You have to use the discs, which are Burton channel compatible, to slide them toe to heel to get these to fit. But if you can fit centered in here, which I'm lucky, I'm a size 9, I'm kind of right in the middle of the sizing of most medium bindings like these, I can turn them this way and slide tip to tail. So overall, I can see why people like Flow, and I can still see the advantages of Flow with their slower on and off, because they're offering you more in terms of flex underfoot, in terms of dampness, in terms of shock absorption, in terms of board feel, and you can get their hybrid strap and get more ankle support too. So in comparison to the Supermatic, they're lighter, they're more of a modern binding feel underfoot, but yeah, you don't have this step in and go with the Supermatic, which is, I gotta say, is a good feeling. But if I were to ride every day and I had to choose between Flow and the Nidecker Supermatic, right now I would choose Flow still. I'd rather have improved board feel and response and feel underfoot and a modern binding feel than quick release. I think Burton Step-On's doing some amazing things, and they're kind of a leader right now in this world. They have better shock absorption, they have better feel underfoot, they have exceptional response, but for some, it might be just too much response. For me, it's a little too much. I love the symmetry, and I like how they're dialing it back, like with the Burton Genesis, but I think they still have a long way to go to get that more traditional strap-in feel. And Clew, I think, is doing a great job. They're nice, reliable, easy bindings to use. They're lighter than the Supermatic, but they have just nothing going on underfoot in terms of feel underfoot. No shock absorption in the heel, minimal along the rest of the base plate, where at least the Supermatic has that. So it really comes down to personal preference. I think I could do all right with the Flow if I got the hybrid strap as opposed to the Fusion strap. And I liked it better than the NX2 carbon just because I'm not that into that stiff of a binding, but could work for you if you are. So there you have it. That's the Flow NX2 TM.